Here are your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
What's going on, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Bloody Water Podcast. Today we're covering UFC Fight Night 194, aka UFC Vegas number 33, and we got a banger of a main event on our hands this weekend. It's a little underhyped, a little underdeserved to a degree, but I'll tell you what, man, we're here to cover it, we're here to break it all down. And when I say we, if you're wondering who is this we talking about, I am your host, Derick G, and coming in hot is my co-host, as always, the New Mexico native, the Santa Fe bomber himself, AJ. What's happening, brother, man? How are you living first and foremost, man? How you doing?
My brother, I'm doing very well out here, man. It's still a sunshiny day in California, living nice. You know, things are going well for me over here. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing very, very well. You know, settling into the new digs out here in the desert as always. You see, we really getting it rolling now, right? It was a little time of transition. We're going to have a little more transition coming up. But listen, man, we living good and we ready for some fights. This weekend, we got UFC Fight Night 194, as we already talked about. This thing started off, man, with, I talked about it on the last episode, right? It started off like 15 bouts, some 17 bouts, something crazy, like a ridiculous amount. And then, you know, sometimes things can be too good to be true. And what happened? We got it whittled down. A lot of cancellations on this card, but hey, man, we still got a really good main event that has always been intact in Uriah Hall versus Strickland, man. First off, AJ, I just want to ask you before we really start breaking down all of that good stuff, you know, we'll talk about the poster and all that in just 1 second, man. This kind of feels to me like one of the biggest underrepresented main events that I have seen in quite some time, man. In your opinion, just as a hardcore fan, how big is this main event truly? It has real implications on the middleweight division as well.
Oh yeah, it has real deal implications on the middleweight division, but for me as a hardcore fan, bro, this is a big fight. Like a big fight in the division and two absolute killers going at it. Most people, I was talking about this with you know, just throughout the week with my friends and whatnot, and most people don't even know. They're like, oh, who's Hall? Who's Strickland? Like, what? What are you talking about? Like, bro, this fight is huge. This fight is so huge and super, like you said before, super underrepresented. So this is like a sleeper of a card, and there's some bangers on this whole thing, but this main event's going to be a lot of fun coming forward, man.
Absolutely, and we got a lot of time to break it down. So before we do that, a little bit of record recap. 78-58 for me, 65-71 for you, AJ. Nothing much has changed, you know what I'm saying? And we're looking to get right back on a hot streak this week, man. But let's do a little poster review, man. Listen, I'm not going to say that this is like one of the best things that the UFC has put out as of late, but this is pretty damn hot, man. This Hall vs. Strickland poster. 1 to 10, AJ. We're writing them down every single week. What are you giving this poster, my man?
I really like this poster as well, Derick. This is like a old school Hollywood poster to me. This one reminds me of something you'd see, you know, two legitimate, like back in the day boxers going at it, man. I really like this one, especially the unity of where they have the white squares and the red and white mix up, man. I really like this one. I'm giving this one an 8.
Okay. So for all of that high praise, we went a little low on the score there, but it's okay, man. And I agree with you. I think that the red and white contrast, they got this little fade effect on the entire poster, which I really like. And I'll tell you, normally I'm not a fan when they have one fighter's face on top and the other fighter's face on bottom. Normally I like it more side to side, you know, like actual face off. But I'm going to give this one the very rare, the very elusive 10 out of 10. My first 10 piece, you know what I'm saying, that I have given out all year long, man, or as far as we've been counting them. I really like this poster. I don't know if it's the color scheme, I don't know what exactly it is, man, but I dig it. So with that being said, we got a little bit of poster review, all that, man. Let's jump straight into some sleepers, AJ.
It's time for some fight night.
If you ain't paying attention, you're gonna sleep on me and I'm gonna wake you up.
We're gonna wake you up if you're sleeping on us, folks, man. We're gonna do what we do best and drop down some sleepers. AJ, you go first, my man. Who is your first sleeper for UFC Fight Night 194?
Yeah, thank you, brother. My first sleeper is Orion Cosy versus Phil Rowe. All right, now, Cosy, he's a very tough fighter coming out of Team Alpha Male, so hopefully for him, some of that last week's magic is still there in the ring for him. And he has a bomb of a left hand and stays fluid while switching stances. Very physically strong in Cosy. All right, now, Phil Rowe, this dude is a very tall striker, flashy, but he stays there to be hit. He likes to watch what he does. He likes to watch his work, and he likes to stay in that pocket. Makes for a fun, entertaining fight. He needs a little work on his wrestling, but his submissions are very slick. This is a sleeper to me, Derick, because this is two very talented fighters who like to throw hands first and hunt the submission second. And we're looking at a very skilled, fast-paced fight. This one's going to be a lot of fun early on the prelims. Who's your first sleeper?
Right on, my man. And I do got to mention Phil Rowe. He has one of the best nicknames in the game. I think it's like the Fresh Prince or something crazy like that. He comes out to the Will Smith songs and all that, man. You love to see it. But I'm going to do something that I'm trademarked for. I'm patented for, man. My first sleeper is a women's strawweight contest. You know I love the lady fights out here, man. Not simply because of, just the uniqueness of it, but truly because of the technicality of it, man. Some of the smallest weights are the most technical fighters you could see, and I really enjoy it. But with that being said, I got Jin Yu Fry facing off against the Spider Monkey and Ashley Yoder. Now, Jin Yu Fry, she's coming off of the first win of her UFC career, where she utilized a lot of wrestling, man, to get that win over Gloria de Paula, someone we're going to be talking about a little bit later on the main card. And Ashley Yoder is coming off a big loss to Angela Hill. So what we have is a UFC veteran versus a former Invicta atomweight champion who is now trying to make a run in the UFC. And listen, you want to use grappling against Ashley Yoder, good luck, man, because it's going to be a long night. She's a submission specialist, and if she wraps herself around you, gets on the back, it could be a very short night. So I'm really interested to see how the grappling is going to play out. You have a veteran versus someone coming up. You always love to see it. We talk about the young versus the old all the time, even though Ashley Yoder is not old, and Fry actually may be older. Nonetheless, it's going to be a sleeper. Tune in, folks. Who's your next sleeper, AJ?
My next sleeper is Danny Chavez versus Kai Kamaka III. Now, I mean, I really don't need to say anymore. If you're a hardcore fan, Danny Chavez versus Kai Kamaka, but I'll break it down for the casuals. All right, Danny Chavez is a fast and slick striker with very fast kicks and a heavy right hand. And basically with Kai Kamaka, you could just copy and paste exactly what I said, man. Very fast striker, very fast kicks, and a hell of a right hand, except the only difference is Kai Kamaka might just be a little bit better at wrestling, and that's a maybe. We'll see this fight coming up. But this one's a sleeper to me, Derick, because I was absolutely shocked when I saw that these two fighters were on the prelims. Absolute treat for us, and it's not a pay-per-view, so it's not like anybody's missing out on anything, but it's still a treat for the early fight night. Kamaka, he doesn't take a backward step ever, and Chavez only takes a backward step when he's setting up a counter strike. This one's going to be very fun, and for me, it has a recipe of fight of the night, but we'll get to that one a little bit later. Who's your second sleeper, Derick?
Well, man, at first I have to say you might be hitting something on the head when you're talking fight of the night for that one, man. Kai Kamaka, he might not be very known, but I guarantee he's probably one of your favorite fighters. You know what I'm saying? But for my last sleeper, AJ, I'm going to go in bantamweight division. I'm going for Trevin Jones versus Ronnie Lawrence. Excuse me, apologies. Got tongue twisters and all that good stuff, man. Listen, these are two all offense, all banger type fighters. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are the all action fighters who are really trying to take each other's head off, who are trying to knock each other out. Ronnie Lawrence, he got his first win in the UFC via ground and pound stoppage, man. This is a dude who's very decorated and accomplished outside of the UFC, and he landed 8 of 9 takedowns and got the job done via the ground and pound, like I said. But when we're talking about Trevin Jones, we're talking about a Guam fighter. We're talking about somebody who got a finish over Timur Valiyev, man, the same person who just got a win over Raoni Barcelos. Like, when you just think about that, you got to think this is sleeper written all over it. Both of these fighters, all of their UFC victories have come via knockout, but I will say for Trevin Jones, man, one of the issues that he's had is that that Valiyev knockout win, it didn't count. Why? Because he tested positive for marijuana. Is that an issue today? No. Was it an issue a couple months ago? Yes. Is it fair? No. Is it a sleeper? Absolutely. Folks, tune in. Going to be a banger. But with that being said, AJ, that is the sleepers that we got. Let's move into some main card action, my man.
Here's to another main card breakdown, courtesy of your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
So, folks, if you're watching, drop a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We say it every week. Help us boost up the algorithm. We really appreciate y'all. And for the commenters, we also appreciate y'all. We've been getting even more of the, hey, man, we just got a good comment recently, AJ, man. I really like this one. They said, man, this is way better than DC and RC. You know, this thing need more views. And I'm like, absolutely, because first and foremost, ESPN, how do you replace Ariel Helwani with Ryan Clark, a football player? I don't understand. It doesn't make sense in MMA, but nonetheless, man, we appreciate y'all. But when we're talking about the business, we're talking about the first contest of the night, man, for the main card. It's a welterweight contest between Brian Barberena, who is a -250 favorite with a comeback of +200 for the Vanilla Gorilla, Jason Witt. Not the original Vanilla Gorilla, but a Vanilla Gorilla. Chase Sherman is also the Vanilla Gorilla. Nonetheless, AJ, I did want to just make note, we got a little bit of a new aesthetic to our little matchup preview right right here where we got the flags on. So we got two Americans going down right here. You got to represent. You already know what it is. But let's talk about it, AJ. This is going to be an interesting matchup because Jason Witt is coming off of a 16-second knockout loss to Matthew Semmelsberger, which was very devastating, bad for morale, all that good stuff. But he's looking to get back, and this dude is very skilled, man. That performance was not indicative of who he is as a fighter. I want to ask you this, man. Bryan Barberena, he's a name. He's been around for a long time. He's 6-5 in the UFC. But what do you think about him in and of itself, man? He's fought real high level opposition and hasn't been on the good end of that side, but at the end of the day, he's a gamer and he's coming to knock you out. His nickname is Bam Bam, and that's also tied to Avasa right there. But I'll just say, man, this dude deserves the nickname because it's either go out on the shield or win by the shield. Just give me your take so far on Bryan Barberena specifically.
Yeah, man. Like you said, Bryan Barberena, he's fought some absolute killers in his UFC tenure. Not necessarily been on the winning side of most of them. But the fact is, he's still able to stand in there and bang with some of the best, all right? Often overlooked by most people in the welterweight division, but Barberena is an absolute scrapper. Showed great takedown defense in his last fight against Ivy and has some super slick striking with some very, very notable power in his punches. Very heavy hands, and watch out for that left down the pipe. Barberena is a scrapper, man. That's the thing about why I like Bryan Barberena going into this fight. This dude's in it for the hurt. He doesn't really care if he wins or loses. He's kind of that gatekeeper position that we've always talked about. But this dude's in it to hurt you. He's in it to sit on his punches, land some big shots, and get an early payday. I really, really like Bryan Barberena in this fight, especially because in Jason Witt's last fight, he was really just throwing unmasked low kicks and stuff like that. And if Jason Witt comes out throwing those again, it's going to be a crazy night, a crazy fight night for Bryan Barberena. What was your takeaway on him when he did some film study, Derick?
Well, you know what? One of the things that I find really interesting about Barberena is he's this big bruiser who does a lot of his work with his hands, man. You're not going to see the majority of kicks or anything like that. You're going to see him cut off the cage very effectively and throw unorthodox strikes, which is one thing that I like, man. So this is something Jason Witt is going to have to take into account because Bryan Barberena, he'll throw elbows off the clinch, he'll get close into you, and then he'll throw standing hammer fists, which I love to see just because it's unorthodox. It's weird and it's chaotic, and you can catch your opponent slipping oftentimes. So punch, and then just, smack you like that. And one of the most dangerous positions for a wrestler like Jason Witt, who's going to try to, probably grapple against Bryan Barberena, tongue twister of a name. But one of the things that he has to be wary about, AJ, I personally think, is when you go in and you shoot for the double leg and you can't quite get it. And we always say, right, you either in or out. You can't get stuck in between. Barberena will throw crazy shots, elbows, the whole entire nine. And he's a welterweight who, in my opinion, man, let me ask you, this dude, like, if you just look at him, I'm like, that dude could be like a heavyweight, man. Like, he's a big boy. Like, how the hell? 170 pounds? Okay, interesting, But let's talk about Jason Witt for just a quick second, AJ. And I just want to go off really quickly because this is a man who's under the tutelage of James Krause over there at Glory MMA. And he had a very, very poor performance in his last fight. But I think that's going to make him very motivated, or it could do the other thing and it could make him a little too hesitant. Maybe not want to, pull the trigger on this one. You did mention, AJ, Jason Witt was throwing a lot of blind, lazy leg kicks, and he literally just got countered, one shot, done, when he's doing something like that. He's going to have to avoid that at all costs, but I'll tell you what Barberena needs to avoid, man. He needs to avoid Jason Witt picking him up, putting him over his shoulder, dropping him on his head, taking his back, and choking him out, because that is what Jason Witt does. Now, let me ask you this. We talked about how good of a boxer that Bryan Barberena is in terms of just his effectiveness. Do you think that he's going to be a little hesitant in terms of the volume because Jason Witt's going to be looking for the takedown?
No, I don't think so, to be honest. I think that Bryan Barberena has very good takedown defense. And one of the aspects of what he does is he throws those, like you said, those weird combinations, but he's also very fast throwing like nice little uppercuts. So anytime they're shooting in on the other, you're going to see him shoot that uppercut, because either way, if he misses, he still has an underhook and he's still able to defend at least a little bit. Personally, I think Jason Witt, a little to what you said, I think he's going to come out a little gun shy, but wrestling heavy, super heavy, looking for takedowns. And I also kind of think Bryan Barberena knows that, especially after getting KO'd how he did, Jason Witt getting KO'd how he did, Witt KO'd how he did in the last fight. I think it's going to be, game plan is going to be wrestling heavy, take Barberena down, put him on his back, and go forward. I definitely don't think we're going to see any of those big looping punches that Jason Witt likes to throw. I think James Krause is going to be able to get him a little more focused in, a little more tight, and a little more game plan heavy. Whereas Barberena, I think his biggest thing going forward is going to be maintaining the strikes in the boxing range, but not getting taken down. He does have very good takedown defense, like I said before, but it's this one's kind of a coin toss for me as far as what goes forward, because if James Krause and Jason Witt are able to game plan real heavy and stick to it, man, he's a killer. The Vanilla Gorilla is an absolute killer, whereas Barberena, like you said before, he's kind of big. He looks really big for the division. I definitely could agree with you. This boy could be a heavyweight for sure, but that just leans to his power. He has serious, real deal power, and if he's able to connect like Semi the Jedi did against Jason Witt, it's going to be an early night. It's going to be a lot of fun seeing forward. What do you think?
Well, I'd agree with a lot of what you said, basically all of it in its reality, but I did want to ask you, man, obviously Barberena has the advantage on the feet, Witt has the advantage on the ground, but I did want to ask a possible scenario of, let's just say they're swinging and banging, man. Jason Witt got hands too, man. Like, his stand-up is the weakest part of his game, in my opinion, just because he's so good in grappling. But the man got hands. He's got 3 knockouts on his record. Probably a lot of those are ground and pound finishes as opposed to just on the feet. But what would lend to Jason Witt having some success on the feet? Is there anything that you have seen where you're like, okay, maybe, because oftentimes you're right, he's throwing big looping shots, you know what I'm saying? It's not jab straights, all that good stuff. It's big shots, but he does have a tendency to be able to connect on the leg kicks if he just sharpens it up a little bit and doesn't throw them as lazy. What do you think?
If he's able to mask the leg kicks, throw jab, leg kick, and then come overhand with that big right, man, that's the one thing I was looking at for Jason Witt. This dude has serious real deal power. And the thing to do against a striker who's throwing him straight down the pipe is just get offline and throw one right over the top, right over his shoulder, connect on the chin. It's an easy night. And that's how I see Jason Witt doing it. If he's able to do that, maybe pressure the wrestling a little bit, get on the inside, duck underneath, and throw that overhand right, I think that's the one way where Jason Witt has the striking advantage. Other than that, I see Barberena having the advantage. What do you think?
No, I'm with you on that one. I think that Jason Witt needs to get the fight to the ground as soon as possible, not even risk getting just starched out by Barberena, because he will cut you off and he will make you fight his fight. And that's one of the best things that I enjoy about Bam Bam Barberena. At the end of the day, man, let's talk a couple of accomplishments. Both of these dudes are former regional champions, which is really, really dope. But Jason Witt, he was a regional champion and who defended his belt 4 times, which, like I said, you defend your belt 4 times anywhere. That's impressive. You know what I'm saying? Because you're at the top of the heap. Lastly, both of these dudes are fast finishers, man. Brian Barberena has 4 first-round finishes. Jason Witt has 7 of them, man. So this one could go really, really quickly, or, this thing can go really, really late. We'll see what happens. But I guess let's just give our picks on this one, AJ. Who do you have and why?
Yeah, this one's a coin toss for me, Derick. I'm going with Brian Barberena by decision, just because I think it's going to be a long, gritty fight. I'm expecting Jason Witt to get a takedown, if not multiple, as well as Barberena to piece him up in the stand-up. I think Barberena is going to lean a little bit more on the experience and outwork Witt when the rounds get longer and the fight gets deeper. So I'm going Brian Barberena by decision. Who you got, Derick, and why?
Okay, so I'm going to have to go Jason Witt on this one. I'm rocking with the Vanilla Gorilla simply because one of my biggest aspects, and it's an intangible, and I didn't bring it up, but this should always just be assumed, in my opinion, when we're talking about the fight nights that are happening at the Apex Center. This is a small cage, and you can only run for so long, and Jason Witt is going to be able to grab a leg or 2 of them and get you on your butt, even if he can't pick you up over his shoulder and slam you. Anthony Ivy had a lot of success against Brian Barberena, just kind of pushing him against the cage and dropping him down to his butt. Now, did he have him there? Did he keep him there for a long time? No. But we just saw last weekend, AJ, the optics of the judges. If you on top and you're in the top position, regardless, even though they don't know shit about BJJ clearly or any of this grappling, if you're on top and you have that good optic, perception, at the end of the day, the judges might give it in your favor. So I'm going for Jason Witt because, as a grappler, there's just too many opportunities in the fight where you can just, grab him, put him on the ground, and try to assert your dominance there. So Jason Witt, decision win for me. I don't think he'll be able to submit Brian Barberena, who's only been submitted once in his 7 career losses. So with that being said, AJ, we move on to the next one, and we're going to rock with, this is a very interesting matchup here, AJ, not only because these are some names that you don't really hear of too often, right? But last time that we heard about Orion Benoit, he actually missed weight before his fight with Zarrukh Adashev, man. And I thought that it was one of those Julia Stoliarenko type situations where they had to bring the commission to like hold them up on the scale and all that. Like, it was a scary situation. And speaking of weight cuts, just really quickly, new documentary coming out. I don't remember the name, but it's featuring Nico Montano, who's fighting on this card, and about when she missed weight against Valentina Shevchenko and was hospitalized, and it was this crazy weight cut situation. It's going to be coming out soon. Just keep your eye on that, folks. But anyway, so we got the baby face. Orion Benoit opened up as a -125 favorite with a +105 comeback against the Lion, Zarrukh Adashev, man. So we have a kickboxer versus a wrestler striker, and this is going to be interesting to me because both of these fighters have had a lot of time to prepare against each other. They were supposed to fight back in March, I believe, something like that. You know what I'm saying? But here we are a couple months later, and I want your opinion on this, AJ. You have a three-time All-State high school wrestling champ out of Texas, which is very prominent, prestigious in terms of any type of combat sports, and Orion Benoit versus a 16-3 kickboxer with 10 knockouts in Zarrukh Adashev. Who has the advantage on paper, AJ?
This one's a weird one because Orion Benoit really likes to stay back and has a bomb of a right hand, but depends heavily on his wrestling. Whereas Zarrukh Adashev, like you said, man, that kickboxing is crazy, and he has serious power in his overhand. Likes to throw those big hooks and overhand punches. Man, he carries serious power in him. As far as who has the advantage, I'm gonna have to go. Advantage goes to Benoit, just because of that ground game. Literally, we've seen how advantageous the ground game can be, and when Benoit's able to get you down and get the wrestling going, he's a serious killer out there. He does stay a little bit patient for my liking, and he needs to start throwing more combos and just single punches out there, because that's what he tends to do. Tends to lean on his power and just throw single punches. Whereas Zarrukh, this dude is serious in the combos, man. He likes to wait for the big shot to advance, but when he does, he's throwing 1s and 2s and 3s all the way down, and is very, very good counter strike when he throws the blitz in. So if I had to give the advantage to anybody overall, I'm going Benoit. But in the certain little aspects, they both have their very very distinct styles in which they go. Which one? Who would you give the advantage to, Derick?
Well, I'm not only giving the advantage to Orion Benoit simply because I think that having that wrestling that you can always fall back on is very, very important, especially when you're fighting someone who's really well versed in the striking and kickboxing in Adashev. Literally, this dude was a 2-time regional kickboxing champion and a kickboxing champion, ISKA USA kickboxing champion out of Glory, which is kind of interesting. I didn't know it really worked that way, but nonetheless, man, you falling back on that is always important in case you start getting pieced up. However, the other thing we have to account for is Benoit has a lot more experience. He has 17 career fights. Adashev only has 3 in terms of mixed martial arts specifically. Like we already noted, he does have an extensive kickboxing career. But let's just talk about the people that Orion Benoit has fought really quickly, AJ. His last 2 are actually really interesting because he has a loss to Tim Elliott, which I think, given a little more volume, he definitely could have won. Elliott just volumed his way to a victory on that one. Haley Alatang, that's another one where it's like, dude, you just got to throw more and you can have the victory. And really interesting because he has a split decision loss against the baby assassin or assassin baby, Brandon Moreno, which that should just tell you everything you need to know about the man. The man could compete. He's fallen just a little short every time, but the man can compete. Now, I agree with you, AJ. Benoit, he is one-shot minded and he relies on landing that knockout punch. So volume is the main issue that I have. But let's talk about his BJJ chops. And this is where I think this fight is heading, man. So Adashev, we have yet to see him wrestle in the UFC yet, you know what I'm saying? So I'm really interested to see how that's going to play out. And when we know that Orion Benoit, he is a BJJ purple belt who is trained with the Danaher Death Squad, man, over there with John Danaher and Gary Tonin. If you don't know who any of those people are, you don't know anything about BJJ because these are some of the greatest. So John Danaher, arguably the greatest mind in modern day Brazilian jiu-jitsu practicing, you know, all of that stuff. And Gary Tonin, he's right up there with the Gordon Ryans and the Craig Joneses of the best modern BJJ players right now. So all that aside, AJ, I just want to know, do you think that Adashev, because we don't know, literally, this is just a big question mark right there. Do you think that he's going to have the takedown defense to be able to keep this fight on the feet and fight his kickboxing fight?
I don't think so, man. I don't think so, especially being so well developed in the kickboxing. He never really had to work on it, being 3-3 in the UFC or in his pro MMA career. I don't really think he's ever been tested quite like that. I know a lot of losses he has, or counter right from Tyson Nam, as well as the Sue Muderji decision. We didn't really see much of it. We didn't really see much of a takedown defense or anything like that. And as far as how skilled Benoit is in that, I think that's a game plan for easy victory on Benoit's side, man. Take him down, beat him up, and especially because a lot of the way Benoit loses is because what we've been talking about, that lack of pressure. Whereas Zarrukh, man, this dude, he can easily piece you up from the outside. They're both the same height, but actually Benoit has the reach advantage. It's going to be interesting. I definitely think we're not going to see that much pressure fighter out of Benoit. We're going to see a lot more big shots coming in for the takedown. I don't think Zarrukh has anywhere near the chops to be able to stop the takedown. What do you think?
You know what, man? I would agree early on. I think Benoit's going to be able to like plug the wrestling very, very early on and really try to make it happen. However, what did we see against Tim Elliott in Benoit's last fight, man? Third round came about, man, started to slow down very substantially. And if you slow down against Adashev, what do we always say? You always tell me this. You're like, hey, man, every single round starts on the feet. So you're going to have to work to get the takedown. And come round 3, if he can't get the takedown, Adashev, that might be his best chance at trying to just get the knockout, land the big left overhand, you know what I'm saying? Because Adashev is a southpaw, so that's something we need to take into consideration. This is a southpaw orthodox matchup. So one thing that is going to be open for Adashev, I believe, is the body kick as well, man. You know, that mean Giga kick, you know? So in terms of significant strikes landed per minute, Benoit does land just a little bit of a higher clip than Adashev. However, I mean, Adashev doesn't have nearly as much experience in the UFC as a Benoit does. And lastly, one big notable win for Orion Benoit that we haven't talked about. Yeah, we talked about notable losses, right? He has a win over Sergio Pettis, the current Bellator bantamweight champion right there, man. So it's like, this dude is game. He's really big, really explosive. I just worry about the cardio. So with that all being said, AJ, we know that Adashev is going to have to fight behind, something, big hooks or something. He's going to have the reach disadvantage. And we know, I think he's the only Uzbek fighter in the UFC right now. Who wins this fight, AJ, and why?
I'm going with the experience of Orion Benoit, man. I don't think Zarrukh has been tested enough, and this is going to be a real deal test for him going forward, because if he's able to get this win, man, it's going to speak levels to his skill, especially if he's able to defend the takedown and keep this thing on the feet. But me personally, I think Benoit's going to lead the dance. I think he's going to apply the pressure, get the takedown, hopefully not just start searching for that one big shot and actually kind of throw some combos, but we'll see. Time will tell on that one. I got Orion Benoit by decision. Who you got, Derick, and why?
I'm going Orion Benoit as well. I think the wrestling is going to be just a little bit too much, and I do think that hopefully the cardio will hold up. Clearly, I have my worries about that. You know what I'm saying? I can't predict the future. I can only make my best estimation, but I think that Orion Benoit gets it done TKO round 3. I think that he's going to stay on top of him, wear him out, and it might be one of those you just throw in too much and Adashev shells up, and they just call it, TKO style. You know what I'm saying? So interesting matchup for sure, man. Like, if you don't know about these cats, man, this is one of those, like, we're telling you right now, you got to tune into this matchup, man. It's going to be a very, very good contest. So this next matchup that we have here, AJ, for a brief moment, Niklas Stolze. So I don't know if you knew, that's how you say it, Stolze, and it's Niklas, like not Niklas Stolze. He's a German fighter, man, and he was in the co-main spot for like 30 minutes until his opponent, Munir Lazez, over there fighting out of Morocco. I think it was a visa issue or something like that. So the fight got pulled. He gets bumped down, and he has arguably a tougher opponent on his hand in the night train, Jared Gooden, man. This is a dude who's got serious pop in his punch. But Niklas Stolze, the Green Mask, right? Interesting nickname. It's because he wore a green mask once and they just, gave it to him or whatever. But this dude's slick, man. He can fight very fluidly out of both stances, and he has real grappling chops, which I'm about to bring up. But nonetheless, Stolze, he opens up as a plus 170 underdog, which is interesting to me, with the minus 200 favorite in Jared Gooden, who took this fight on what? 5 days notice, 4 days notice. Like, he just took the fight like yesterday or the day before. So this is going to be interesting. I think it's interesting that Stolze is an underdog in this matchup. And this is a welterweight contest, man. So let's talk about it really quickly, AJ. 12-4 is Stolze, 17-6 is Jared Gooden. I know you're a fan of Jared Gooden, so just give the people the little synopsis on what you personally like about Jared Gooden going into this fight, even though it's short notice for him.
Man, even though it's short notice for him, I really like Jared Gooden because he stays slick and stays calm. Very fast hands, very good head movement. This dude is a brawler. Not even just a brawler, excuse me. This dude is a slick brawler. He will piece you up and not be there for you to hit. He's one of those few very athletic guys who has mastered the pull. where you're throwing shots, he can pull back and come in. It's very athletic move, man. I really like Jared Gooden for how fast his hands are. We're gonna see how well he matches up with Stolze, in how good Stolze is and how much stuff Stolze has in his tool belt. Because I do think that he's a little overmatched. Jared Gooden's a little overmatched going into Stolze this match going forward, specifically because he doesn't have as much stuff to depend on. You know, he doesn't have the ground game. He doesn't have the wrestling chops as much as Stolze does. But Jared Gooden has, like I said, very slick striking and a hell of a right hand. Got to watch out for him. He's very, very good. And what I like about him too, he's a little cocky. He's a little, he keeps the hands down. It might have just been in the last fight against Abu Bakr because he was defending the takedowns. But man, he stays slick and he stays confident. And that head movement keeps rolling. It's a really good fighter out of Jared Gooden. I'm excited for this one. What's your takeaway, Derick?
Well, for Jared Gooden, basically everything you said is on par. I do like, the biggest thing I like about him is how relaxed he is when he's fighting. You know, there's no tensing up, trying to, no, he's very relaxed. And I think that's what allows him to be so durable in terms of his chin, man. Because against Abu Bakr, man, he was getting rocked. He was getting pieced up. And listen, so here's one very cool stat that I like about Jared the Night Train Gooden, man. He has never been finished. He fights in 170 pounds, He's never been finished by a welterweight ever. The only time he's been finished was by a middleweight. So it had to be someone who weighed more than him, a bigger type situation, or he probably went up in weight or whatever, but not in his natural weight class. That's the only person who's been able to finish him. I don't have the name off the top of my head, but nonetheless, AJ, that's very impressive, right? To just say like, okay, we got a real gamer here, a real durable dude. And you're right. Jared Gooden might not have all the same tools to be able to contend with Stolze in this matchup, but I'll tell you what, he has the number one equalizer, which is that one-shot KO power, man. That's something that Stolze does not have, in my opinion. I think he's more of a volume guy. He's more of let's look at it. He has 4 knockouts, 5 submissions, 3 decisions. When we're talking about Jared Gooden, though, 7 knockouts, 6 submissions, 4 decisions. So it'll be interesting. And I would really like to see Jared Gooden's BJJ repertoire or whatever the case, because he is a brown belt, believe it or not. He just likes to rely on the big punches. Now, when we're talking about striking, right, we would clearly, I think for me and you both, would you agree that Gooden has the advantage on the feet?
I'd say he has the advantage in the hands. Stolze has really nice kicks, really nice kicks. That's what I like about him. And he's so tall and he's able to switch stances that you don't know when those kicks are coming. When you have somebody that's constantly switching stances, you don't know if it's a switch kick or if he's just switching stances. So I'd give the advantage to Gooden in the hands, but Stolze in the feet. And as far as overall striking, I don't know. That's a toss-up for me. What do you think? Well,
so what I was going to allude to is that on paper, you would kind of look at it and you'd be like, oh, yeah, Gooden probably got striking advantage. Stolze, yeah, we'll probably go grappling and all that. No, man. Stolze, he is, let's look at it, 17-3 as a professional kickboxer, man. So I have his style down. He's a kickboxer and a BJJ guy, right? Where Jared Gooden, really, he's just a big striker, man. That's what he relies on. That's his bread and butter. So that's like the tricky part about it. So let me just ask you, man, because we're talking about this. We're really breaking it down. Why do you think the odds makers see it as -200 for Jared Gooden? If we're over here, we're talking about he has more of a well-rounded game than Gooden does. Do they really believe in his power? What do you think?
No, I think it's just because in Stolze's last fight, he's supposed to be, the more well-rounded guy, the kind of the grappler, and he got dominated. Well, maybe not dominated, but he got controlled pretty good in the Amib fight. And I definitely think it's a recency bias, whereas Jared Gooden, when you see him, he's this very imposing dude. Very strong, very big. Like I said, likes to keep those hands fast and has knockout power, where Stolze is really less imposing, less scary of a fighter, very tall, very long, kind of like an old Alexander Gustafsson, or not Gustafsson, the skyscraper. What's his name?
Stefan Struve.
Struve, thank you. Like an old Stefan Struve, where he's not really that scary, but he's very, very tall and dominant. He's very sharp right hand down the pipe, which I like from Stolze, but I definitely think it's not necessarily as powerful as Gooden. So that's why I think they're giving the advantage, or at least the dog weight to Gooden going forward in this one. Why do you think they're doing it, Derick?
I don't know, dude. Honestly, I think it's probably just that, like, the optics. Honestly, just because Stolze, in all of my film study, I just think he's much more well-rounded. He's the better fighter overall. And when we're talking about fluidity in your striking, he could fight. Like I said earlier, he could fight very well out of both stances. Hit you with a million kicks. He hit you with crazy combos, man. One of his favorite combinations he likes to throw is the flying knee. So he'll hit you with the, you know what I'm saying, the jab straight, head kick, or right straight, flying knee, jump into all types of crazy maneuvers. But let's just talk about the other equalizer Jared Gooden has. He's an athlete, man. He's very, very athletic. So I want to ask you about this when it comes down to it. Both of these dudes have very good takedown defense. So Jared Gooden, if you recall, he was actually able to stuff 4 out of 5 takedowns from Abubakar Nurmagomedov, which is a huge statistic. Now for Stolze, he was able to get up pretty easily every time he got taken down by Ramazan Emeev, right, who's a legit high-level wrestler. So both of these dudes have really good takedown defense. Both of these dudes clearly can do a lot of different things very well, but do you think Gooden is the better athlete? And then answer that one, and then let's go into our picks after that and how that weighs into your pick.
Yeah, I would agree. It seems like Jared Gooden is the better natural athlete as far as, you know, how he's just looking out there. He's real calm. He stays slick. You know, his fluidity is there in what you see all the other athletes that perform in going forward. Whereas Stolze, he's not as not stiff necessarily, but he's a little more jittery if I had to put a word on it. So as far as if that goes into my picks, not necessarily. I definitely think this one's going to be a very interesting match, and I think it's a lot closer than -200 to +170 for the Stolze, just because we got a very slick boxer versus a very nice kickboxer. Stolze has a lot in his tool belt going forward, but I do give the power advantage to Gooden. I think if this becomes a technical battle, Stolze is going to be looking real good in those late rounds, where if this is a dog fight, I give the advantage to Gooden. Maybe you can, lean that one on his athleticism because he's able to get the better of each single exchanges, especially early on. But for me personally, I'm going to give my pick right away. I'm going Stolze by decision. I think he's going to be able to maintain that range, piece Gooden up from the outside, and really hurt him with the kicks. We saw in Gooden's last fight, he did get rocked a couple times, and I think Stolze is going to be bringing some heat, hot and heavy. Who you got and why, Derick?
Well, one thing that I did want to note just lastly before I give my pick is I think it's a very fair assessment of what you're talking about. These fighters are combined 0-3 in the UFC, so I think that's an added element to where both of these dudes really want to earn their first UFC win, and we're going to talk about that more in the next matchup as well. So I think that can kind of sway the fight style of both of these fighters, but at the end of the day, I'm going to have to go my pick. I'm going to go Niklas Stolze, and the reason why I'm going that is because I think that the grappling chops are just going to be too much personally. We haven't seen Jared Gooden really lean on his grappling yet. He didn't do it against Abubakar. So I envision Niklas Stolze somehow getting into a crazy scramble. Like I'm talking about, his scrambles are so slick. Like it looks straight out of like a BJJ match. It doesn't look like it's an MMA match or MMA BJJ, right? So because of the slickness of his scrambles, I think he's going to be able to get that arm underneath the chin of Jared Gooden, put him to sleep, rear naked choke. I'm going to go submission round 2 on that one, man. Hopefully not, because I think this also could have fight of the night written all over it as well, but we'd have to go all 3 for that to happen, I think, personally, man. But I'm going the underdog on this one, man. The dude who's got just a little more of the well-rounded game. So let's move on to the next one, AJ. Now, this one right here, man, I didn't envision this matchup necessarily, right? We got the American in Cheyanne Buys, who is a -190 favorite with a comeback of +160 for the Brazilian Gloria de Paula, man. Now, we saw de Paula get basically just hugged to death in her last fight, right? You know what I'm saying? It happens. Jin Fry, she needed the big win, and that's how she got it. She needed that first UFC win, so she played it really safe and says, I'm going to take away Gloria de Paula's best weapon, which is arguably her stand-up. It's her Muay Thai, right? She started her entire martial arts career as a Muay Thai practitioner and then moved on to MMA. Beautiful knees, beautiful kicks. Get that Thai plum. It's going to be a problem. But guess what, AJ? This is very similar to what I talked about with Macy Barber versus Miranda Maverick, where they're both really good at kind of the same things, right? Because Cheyanne Buys, same thing. Knees, kicks. She's a black belt in Taekwondo. It's basically the same thing, right? The main difference here is I want to ask you off the bat, who do you think is the more technical striker? Because both of these fighters are really, really legit strikers. Who's more technical in your opinion?
If I had to give the technical advantage to anyone, I'd probably go Cheyanne Buys, man. She stays a little more kind of close up in, keeps a high guard, keeps everything down the pipe. Whereas Gloria de Paula, really her biggest kind of pro and con is she looks for those clinches right away, and she'll leave her hands extended. She'll leave her hands extended where they're able to get up underneath or over the top and really hurt you when you're not defending your head anymore when you're reaching out for that tie plum. Who would you give the striking advantage to, or the technical advantage, excuse me?
So I'm actually going to have to disagree with you, and I'm going to Paula in terms of the more technical fighter, and here's the reason why. Cheyanne Buys, when she's at her best, she is pressuring you. She's walking forward and she's throwing, she's swinging and banging, man. She's like one of the definitions of a legit fighter. Like, she's down to bang, right? And Gloria de Paula, she'll stay in the pocket, she'll throw the right cross and bring it back. Not the over the knee, super crazy, you know, she'll bring it back, kick, you're just like tight, you know what I'm saying? And I like that because with, you know, the kicks of Gloria de Paula as opposed to Cheyanne Buys, it's like the thing that I feel about Cheyanne Buys personally, because both these fighters have very little experience, right? Combined, they are 10-5 overall in their entire careers, right? No UFC wins as of yet. But Cheyanne Buys, she'll go into that Cody Garbrandt see red mode where she'll just start throwing big hooks over the top, you know, really one of those crazy, the big knees, and we see it. We saw it in the Dana White Contender Series against Hillary Rose, who is a very, very skilled prospect on the regional scene. We saw it. She tried to pull it off against Montserrat Ruiz, but Ruiz just head and arm tossed her a million times, right? But de Paula, I think she relies on the Muay Thai a little bit more, which is a little sharper than the Taekwondo. Would you agree with me? Just because Taekwondo, I mean, it's all kicks. It's all big motions, big animated motions. Muay Thai is very much more tight in the pot. Bring it back. You know, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd agree with you in that aspect, especially when the fight becomes a fight and not a match anymore in round 2 and 3, when really, like you said, they start to see red and start to get crazy and you fall back on what you've been doing for years. I could agree with that. I definitely think Cheyanne Buys looks a little bit more aggressive and kind of uncontrolled, whereas Gloria de Paula, she does stay back to her skills of that Muay Thai. Both I definitely think the clinch is a little, we're going to see that's where the X factor comes in, who's able to get the best of the clinch. But as far as staying sharp and staying right in the pocket, yeah, Gloria de Paula has very, very good technique and a very, very sharp right hand that goes right down the pipe, and very good elbows as well. You know, she's very well-rounded.
Absolutely. So let's talk about speed. Let's talk about speed here, right? I think naturally Buys, apologies, I'm trying to get the name right still. I don't think that she is the fastest strawweight in the world. And I think she sacrifices speed because she sits down on her shots a little bit more. Now, I could say the same thing for de Paula, but I think de Paula is even slower because she really, what she lacks in speed, she makes up tenfold in power. So power advantage, who are we going? Buys or de Paula?
Yeah, I'd have to go power advantage to de Paula.
Speed?
Speed. This one, I don't know, man. This one's right there where I think they're both kind of in that same realm of if they stay sharp and don't load up on their punches, I think they both have the same speed. Whereas I think Cheyanne Buys does have faster kicks. I will give her that. She does have faster kicks than Gloria de Paula. So power, de Paula, speed, Buys, kind of a mix up for that one. Who do you think?
I think that's an accurate statement right there. I think Buys does have a little bit more power. Speed than de Paula specifically. But let's talk about this other X factor right here, man. This fight goes to the ground. Who has the advantage if this fight goes to the ground?
Man, if off the bat, I'd give the advantage to Buys or Buys or however you say the last name,
Cheyanne,
just because she's a little more well-rounded, or at least we've seen a little bit better. She knew what to do against Montserrat Conejo. She just wasn't able to get it done. You saw her go into her base and actually able to twist the hips and rotate underneath. Just got out-gamed by Montserrat. Whereas Gloria de Paula, Jinyu Fry just absolutely manhandled her on the ground. She literally just went to her back and didn't try anything else to get up. So if I had to give the advantage on the ground, I'm going Buys, man. Who do you got?
I'd agree with you. I think that Buys not only has the advantage on the ground, but she has like a drastic advantage. But here's the biggest X factor on top of that, right? So if you'll remember, Jinyu Fry, she fights out of Fortis MMA. That's kind of a new endeavor for her, right? And her last matchup was Gloria de Paula, and they hugged her to death, got the win easy. Saif Saud was going crazy, clapping, all that, making it happen for Jinyu Fry, right? Well, what's the common factor here? Cheyanne, guess where she fights out of? Fortis MMA. Guess who's going to be in her corner? Saif Saud. Guess who's a very, very recent opponent? They just fought Gloria de Paula. I think that Saif Saud is the X factor, similar to how I mentioned James Krause can be an X factor at times. And I think that they're going to have a game plan against de Paula because they already know what worked. So the question is going to be, does de Paula, who fights out of Shoot to Box Diego Lima, is she going to be able to work on that takedown defense. I mean, that's a Muay Thai gym. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So just
Yeah,
give me your assessment really quickly, though, man. Do you think that Gloria de Paula, in between the last time that she fought, which was not that long ago, to now, even had enough time to really work on those like wrestling sprawls and things of that nature?
No, I don't think so. I definitely think we're going to see the same game plan coming out of Cheyanne Buys, for the fact that Gloria de Paula really likes to get that tie clinch. And once you get your hands on somebody, the takedown's even easier, especially when they're coming in and advancing. All you got to do is duck under, shoot a double leg, shoot a single leg. You're already in on the hips, lock those hands up. And we've seen that Gloria de Paula doesn't really like to do anything off of her back, especially because I don't think she's had the time to learn anything off of her back. It's, you know, down there in Brazil, obviously the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is crazy, but they're more of a Muay Thai gym, like you were saying. I don't think she's necessarily has the chops or the time frame in order to learn the chops. Whereas Cheyanne Buys, you know, they're planning heavy down there, and they've already seen a game plan to win against Gloria de Paula. Now, that being said, when you do take a big loss and you go back and you rewatch that fight, you know what you got to work on. So Gloria de Paula could have been already thinking, you know, like, I'm solid on the feet. I'm solid stand up. I'm solid in the clinch. I'm got that, but I need to work on my ground game. So they could have done it, you know, 2-3 months. I don't know how long the fight's been since there, but 2-3 months of strict wrestling, strict jiu-jitsu work could have, you know, put a little hitch in her step, and we'll see how that goes so far. Do you think she's had enough time to change her game plan up? And so is something different going forward?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not, man. It's just not enough time. You need more time. You need a really long camp to be able to work those skills. And I think that she's probably going to say, let me just sharpen the hands a little bit more and not even allow her to get it to there. Let me just get her out of there first, man. Because this will be a violent fight. I really do believe that. But my last question before we give our picks on this one, man. Both of these fighters in their UFC debuts suffered incredibly decisive losses, like not even close for both of these fighters. It's hard for us to tell because we don't know these people personally. But from what you've seen on the big screen and all of that stuff, who do you think who will be more mentally tough and able to bounce back in this next fight? Because, you know, like I said, this is your UFC debut. You lose very decisively after big Contender Series wins prior to that. Who do you think will bounce back stronger?
I think Buys is going to bounce back stronger on this one, especially because of her after fight antics in her last one, where she was saying, I'm going to follow this bitch out. Like, I definitely think she already bounced back after the loss. She didn't think she lost that one. She was she might have thought she lost that one, but she didn't think that it was, she still belonged in the fight. So I definitely think Cheyanne Buys is going to bounce back a little quicker and able to shake it off, especially fighting out of the gym she is, man. So who do you give that one to?
You know what? I'm going to say the same thing. I just think that gym is just too strong of a gym. And the one thing that I did want to know for de Paula, though, I don't know if you know this, is that she's in a couple. Her girlfriend is Mayra Bueno Silva. So Mayra Bueno Silva has real legit BJJ chops. Maybe she got the rub, you know. Maybe she was like, hey, can you help me work on some takedown defense or something? But with that all being said, let's go picks, man. I'm going to go first. I'm going Cheyanne Buys. I think she gets the job via decision. This is going to be a violent, bloody fight. If the way that I'm thinking about it comes to fruition. Who do you got and why?
I definitely think this one is another coin toss for me. I could see it going both ways, and we've been talking big on Cheyanne Buys, but I'm actually going Gloria de Paula by decision. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they're going to be wrestling. I don't really see that coming forward. Maybe we do. Maybe Cheyanne Buys does take the Jinyu Fry approach and just hugs her to death, hugs Gloria de Paula to death, and we're not able to see anything else. But I think these girls want to get one on the docket and get a big win. So they're going to be swinging for the fences, showing us something impressive. And going for that, I got Gloria de Paula winning by decision, just based off of the Muay Thai strikes and back and forth attitude that she has. And I do think Cheyanne Buys is going to see a little red and try to just break away from the game plan and get a KO. We'll see what happens, but I got Gloria de Paula by decision going forward.
Okay, right on. Sounds like it should be an interesting one, man. We going separate picks on this one. May the best man win. Now, for a co-main event, man, this was super randomly the co-main event, right? This was not the most exciting fight in the world, personally, in terms of the matchup, and I'm surprised to see it on the co-main event slot. But nonetheless, it is a really, really good matchup, and this is someone who has one of the best nicknames in the game. Kyung Ho Kang, a.k.a. Mr. Perfect, opens up as a minus 145 favorite in this bantamweight matchup against Rani Yahya, who is a plus 120 underdog, which is Very surprising, because if you look at his last fight against Ray Rodriguez, he did what he does best and he submitted him. He got the job done. Ray Rodriguez is a real puncher, a real deal puncher. And let's talk about Kang, man. Kang isn't the biggest puncher in the world, right? He's looking to wrestle you, take you down, control you for an entire round. Now, let me just ask you, because I think that this segment can be a little bit on the shorter side. Both of these dudes are very experienced. Kang did have to do something that the Korean Zombie did as well, because he's South Korean. He had to do his mandatory 2-year service. So this is his 6th bout since coming back from the 2-year, military service that he did. I want to ask you this, man. This dude is very experienced. 5 rear naked chokes out of his 11 submission victories, which we talked about Mickey Gall. It's just so impressive to be able to do that type of stuff, right? But you're fighting arguably one of the greatest MMA BJJ practitioners of all time in Rani Yahya, man. Like, this dude, you know what he's going to do. It's basically like Damian Maia. You know he's going to try to submit you. Are you going to be able to stop it? The answer is most likely no, but it can happen, right? I mean, Yahya does have 10 losses on his record. So when we're talking, but we're in the UFC, he only has 4. So let that, take that for what it's worth. Let me just ask you, man. Kang, he wants to wrestle. Yahya, he wants to grapple. Who do you think has the advantage going into that? This is an interesting matchup.
This is a very interesting matchup, Derick, and we're going to see a very high-level jiu-jitsu wrestling match. We're going to see a lot of rolls, a lot of up and down, a lot of going back and forth. The advantage, though, I don't really know, man. This one, if I had to give the advantage to anybody, to be honest, I'm going to give it to Rani Yahya, just because he is so experienced in the game, and he's seen it all, done it all, tapped almost everybody, and been, lost the big hard decisions like he did against Ricky Simone. He's had really good fights going forward. So advantage overall, like if I had to take every aspect of the fight into this one, I'm giving it to Rani Yahya specifically off of experience and knowing what's coming forward. Whereas Kang, he's still young in the game, man. He's only 33 years old, 17-8. Like you said, he's the 6'5" back. So he does throw these really nice straight punches, but I don't think this is going to be a striking match, man. I think this is going to be a lot of grappling, very heavily wrestling jiu-jitsu match, and in a tiny cage like we're going to see in Vegas. I think this one's going to be an interesting one for the fans out there who like to see those kind of matches going forward. Who do you give the advantage to, Derick, and why?
Well, I got a wrench coming out of left field on this one, man, and I give it to Rani Yahya as well, but not for the same reasons that you give him the advantage, man. You mentioned Rani Yahya versus Ricky Simone, who's one of the highest level wrestlers in the game right now, right? But what did you notice in that fight? Did Ricky Simone rely on his wrestling in that fight? Absolutely not. It was all about the hands, right? He would literally, like, Yahya does what Ryan Hall does, where if he gets hit, he just drops to his back. Similar to Nick Diaz and Nate Diaz, right? You just drop to your back, open your guard, and say, come on in. I'll try to pull you into my guard. And Ricky Simone would be like, nope, get up. We're gonna really bang it out, right? But the thing that a lot of people forget about Rani Yahya is that he's not just a BJJ guy. This dude's a black belt in Muay Thai. Like, he has legit striking. Now, let me preface that, actually. He has solid striking for somebody who's looking to just brawl and get as close as possible to you to grab you and then take the fight to the ground, right? It's not super technical, crisp, all that, right? It's big brawling style type, fighting, right? Now, let me ask you this, AJ. What do we say about all these Brazilians, all these grapplers that I love so much? I say, listen, you can strike with reckless abandon. You don't care what you throw, because guess what? I don't care if you take me down. Put me on my back. That's fine. That's where I want you. I'm going to heel hook you. I'm going to rear naked choke you. I'm going to grab whatever I need to grab, but I'm going to grab something. And if Kyung Ho Kang decides he wants to wrestle, and that's really the approach that he wants to take, I'm interested to see if he can nullify any of the grappling, because one of the things about grapplers, right? This is not a jiu-jitsu matchup. If you're a wrestler, you get into the half guard and you start doing the ground and pound, there's nothing you can do if you're one of those grapplers, man. Nobody can save you. So with that caveat kind of thrown in there, what are the odds, though, that this is actually a striking matchup? It seems like you think it's going to be heavy grappling, but I think there could be a high likelihood that this is just a striking matchup. This is like a kickboxing match or something.
There is a very high likelihood that this could be a kickboxing match because of what you said with the Ricky Simone fight. If you want to go in and test your skills against a dude who's high level at wrestling or at jiu-jitsu, that's a risky move. That's a really risky move, especially when he's that good. And don't get me wrong, Kang is really good at the ground game, but not as good as Rani Yahya. Whereas like we saw in last week's fight, I don't have the notes up on this one, but where we had two really good wrestlers go at it and they were just banging it out. Maybe you might be able to recall the name of the fighters. It's yeah, I can. It's all good. But when we see fire versus fire, sometimes that other aspect comes out where they need to pull something out of the tool belt. And with Khan having the height and the reach advantage, I definitely see him trying to fall back a little bit more on that. Because, man, if you're trying to go in and test Rani Yahya on the ground, man, it's a ballsy move going forward, man. What do you think? You really see this one going forward as a kickboxing match? And at that aspect, will Kang have the striking advantage, even though Rani Yahya is very experienced on the feet?
Well, I do think that this has a much more of a likelihood to just swang and bang type fight, with Rani Yahya trying to get takedowns and maybe not really working, being reckless, all that stuff. And I'm glad you mentioned the reach advantage of Kang, because Kang has let's look at it. It's 73 to 67. That's a 6-inch reach advantage. He has a crispy jab and a sharp check left hook. So I think if he relies on those things, man, and he keeps Yahya at distance, it's going to be a really long night. And the other thing I really like about Kang is he has, similarly to Islam Makhachev, right? He has these like no feint, no tell, immediate for the takedown, right? Like it's just chilling, pow, you just shoot immediate, right? And the other thing he has is very little feint on his head kicks, man. So you never know. Yahya got to be careful coming in recklessly, because Kang has those quick snapping, roundhouses that could put his lights out. I will say Yahya, he's only been knocked out twice in his career. This is what was interesting. I think I wrote it down. So Yahya is very durable. We know this, right? He knows how to fight through adversity, and he's only been finished 3 times in 38 fights. That is an 8% clip. You've only been finished in 8% of your fights, man. That's super, super impressive. So I think that the durability definitely has to go in favor of Rani Yahya. However, this is going to be just experience, man. Yahya got more experience, and when you're in that Damian Maia style role, man, you can never count this man out. Similar to what we learned about Darren Elkins once again, which we should have already learned our lesson, but once again, here we go, right? So at this point, just give me your pick and why, AJ.
Yeah, man, this is a close fight to me, especially if they go to where both of their strengths lie on the ground. It's going to be interesting to see. But personally, I got Kang going for decision, man. I definitely think this is one of those ones that's going to prove if Kang is a real deal or a middle of the pack fighter. And if he's able to get through Yahya, he's going to be able to start fighting some real deal killers in the division. But that being said, if this goes to the judges, it's Vegas. So we've seen what happened last week. We don't know what's going to happen. And Rani Yahya is very hard to put away. But personally, I got Kyung Ho Kang, however you say his last name. I'm sorry for messing it up, but I got him by decision. Who you got, Derick, and why?
Okay, man. So I will say, we talk about Kang as just being this wrestler. He has real jiu-jitsu chops as well, man. The dude has 11 submission victories. I've seen him snatch triangles off of his back like it's nobody's business. But when you're fighting a dude like Rani Yahya, your 11 submission wins are not up to par to Yaya's 21 submission wins, man. It's just a different level of the game. This man is a 3-time world jiu-jitsu champion, a 2007 Abu Dhabi Combat Club champion, man. This dude is legit. We could talk about it as much as we want. We know he's game. I'm interested to see how the hands play out, but I'm going to go Rani Yahya because the man knows how to fight through adversity. And I think this is going to be a decision win, though, man. I don't think that he's going to be able to submit Kang. I think Kang is going to be, hopefully, you know what I'm saying, putting up a good fight, because this could be one of those, what do they call it, washing machine type fights, like the Darren Elkins, Derek Minner, where they were just going back and forth, on top, on bottom, on top, up here, down. So we'll see. Cardio is going to be interesting. Rani Yahya might have a little bit of a cardio, or actually, no, he's not going to have a cardio issue whatsoever. Rani Yahya is game all 3 rounds. And let's see if Kang is too, man. So my pick, Rani Yahya, unanimous decision. That's the co-main event. Now, let me get you back up here, AJ, and let's talk about the main event. We got prime time. Number 8 ranked Uriah Hall opens up as a plus 175 favorite. And folks, this says bantamweight. It's not bantamweight. It's middleweight. Apologies. Messed up on the graphic. It's okay. But he's facing off against number 11 ranked Strickland, who's a minus 225 favorite in this matchup, AJ. Let's talk about experience. Both of these dudes are super experienced, right? Uriah Hall, 17-9, 10-7 in the UFC. He's fought big names, right? Strickland, 23-3 in his MMA career, man. 10-3 in the UFC. He's had 2 basically UFC careers, right? 1 pre-knee injury, 1 post-knee injury, and he's a different man since the knee injury, man. Really, he's a different man since he finished Brendan Allen just a couple of fights ago, man. That was just 2 fights ago. So I'm interested to know this, AJ. Uriah Hall is a rangy counter striker. Sean Strickland, he's a boxer wrestler who is just feels very, very comfortable, almost too comfortable, just walking forward, following his opponent, and just jab straighting him to death. You know what I mean? And I love the confidence. Sean Strickland is one of my favorite fighters because of the attitude outside of the cage, as well as the I'm gonna talk to you the whole time and just what's up, let's game. I thought we're men, let's rock. You know what I'm saying? I love that attitude. Uriah Hall, he's much more soft spoken. You know what I mean? He's not the most public guy. He likes to be very private, but the man has wins over some real big names, man. So I'm going to talk about notable wins really quickly, and then I want you to give me your synopsis of this matchup. So for Uriah Hall, notable wins: Anderson Silva, TKO round 4; Krzysztof Jotko, TKO round 2; Gegard Mousasi, TKO round 2; Chris Lieben, TKO round 1. Lieben actually retired in that fight. For Sean Strickland, Court McGee, unanimous decision. It's really hard to get that guy Court McGee out of there, so that's impressive. Brendan Allen, TKO round 2, as I already mentioned, and Krzysztof Jotko in his last fight, unanimous decision. So Uriah Hall has the more impressive victories overall. But Sean Strickland, he's a gamer. This dude's come to play, revamped his fight style. What is your synopsis of this fight, AJ?
Man, this one's going to be a lot of fun. This is a main card fight for a reason, man. I love the way Sean Strickland fights with throwing punches. He doesn't load up at all. He just literally throws them right from the shoulder. Very fast, but he strikes hard, man. He's got some serious crack on his shots. Whereas Uriah Hall, he's going to be looking for the counter strike. We saw how we weren't able to see a lot in Uriah Hall's last fight with Chris Weidman, obviously. But we did see in the Anderson Silva fight, man, this dude can seriously scrap once he finally gets in that mindset. That round 3, round 4 that he had against Anderson Silva, very impressive, very strong fighter. I see Sean Strickland leading the dance on this one, walking him down, talking the shit like he likes to, whereas Uriah Hall, he's going to be looking for a counter strike. I don't necessarily see this one going to the ground that much. Maybe it does when one of them gets hurt, but I definitely see a nice, solid kickboxing match coming forward. Like I said, Sean Strickland leading the dance, where Uriah Hall is looking to pick and choose his shots. Although, if I had to give anybody the power advantage to this one, I'm giving it to Hall. Even though Sean Strickland, one of my favorite fighters as well, Derick, homeboy can crack. But if I had to give power advantage overall, I'm giving it to Hall, whereas I give the speed advantage to Strickland. Who do you think, Derick? Who has the advantages, and how do you see this one playing out going forward?
So I think in terms of, like, unless Hall could land the big strike, right, that is going to be necessary, which he does almost every time, man. He has a knack for landing that big punch. He's only one strike away in every single one of his fights. But unless he lands that one, Sean Strickland is just going to volume him up, man, because that's the main difference we're going to see is Strickland throws a lot. Why? Because, like you said, he's very efficient. Throws from the shoulder, only throws when he's in position to throw, and he's just tagging you up constantly. Just tagging you up. Just volume, and that's what wins you fights at the end of the day, right? You can't, if you want to leave it to the judges, if you can't get the knockout and you're trying to, get a decision, you got to do everything you can possibly do to ensure that the judges know that you won. Like I said, Tim Elliott versus Orion Benoit. Tim Elliott won that fight simply because of volume. Jab, calf kick. Let's talk about calf kicks really quickly, AJ. So Sean Strickland, one thing that we know about him is he likes to mix up his strikes with the calf kicks, right? So he'll throw the head strikes, keep piecing you up with the boxing, but he won't really throw the body kicks a lot, but he'll throw a lot of calf kicks just to mix it up, keep you on your toes, make you guess, right? But what do we know about Uriah Hall is, like, the man has a real deal knack for being able to check kicks. And this isn't just that fight. That's like against Anderson Silva. When I was watching the Anderson Silva fight back, he checked both of Anderson Silva's kicks flawlessly, right? And what did it do? It made Anderson Silva say, yeah, I should probably stop throwing these kicks. You know what I mean? Probably not a good idea because he's on it. Like, he just has the knack for putting that knee out. He's also in an interesting stance because he's a Kyokushin karate, second degree Kyokushin karate black belt. So Uriah Hall has that wider stance. He's looking to kind of just go out, hit you with some spinning stuff. You know what I'm saying? Hit you with that crazy shot. So I agree with you. In terms of the power, we're going to go Uriah Hall. Sean Strickland, though, I give him an advantage in most everything else, man. Accuracy, I give him the advantage in the volume, in the speed. I give him the wrestling advantage because prior to, like, old Sean Strickland, this dude was a dude who relied on the clinch and the grappling a lot. Now he's comfortable with the hands. But AJ, I need to ask you a question because it concerns me. It's one of my favorite things about Strickland, but it's also one of my most concerning things about Strickland. He doesn't change his pace. And what I mean by that is not the punching speed. What I mean is he's walking forward just like this the whole time. And folks that are just listening, I'm just putting my finger across the screen. It's just whole time coming forward. It's not the coming forward, stop, back out, come forward, back, stop out. It's not none of that, right? So what does that do? That makes you a little predictable, right? And Uriah Hall may be able to take advantage of that predictable nature. When in his fight against, who was it? Was it Anderson? It was maybe Bevan Lewis. I don't remember. Oh no, it was Jotko. So it was Uriah Hall versus Jotko, right? Uriah Hall was getting pieced up, man. That whole first round, he was getting pieced up. Second round, it literally took one overhand right. Jotko, done, right? So Uriah Hall has the power in the hands and the feet, man. And Sean Strickland has to be really careful because I think that he's a little overconfident in his chin. He's a durable guy. He's, let me see, how many times has he been knocked out? Only once, and that was by Kamaru Usman. So it's like impressive chin, but that's what it comes down to right here. Am I giving that a fair assessment right there, AJ, where I'm just a little concerned? Because I think Uriah Hall, man, like Sean Strickland is almost tailor-made for Uriah Hall in terms of a matchup, in terms of giving Hall the advantage. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head with that one, especially with how Sean Strickland walks forward. It's one of his most devastating techniques that he's always going to be going forward at the same pace. So, well, for him, he knows that he's going to be going forward and those strikes are super fast, super heavy, and they'll hit you hard. Whereas if you're getting walked down on constantly at the exact same pace, if I take this, and it only takes a little bit for these pros to figure it out. Whereas if I take this big of a step back, he's going to be right here in time for the counter strike. It's really easy to say, and that's why they teach you, when you're striking, to be in and out, to be unpredictable, because the more predictable you are, the easier it is for them to land that counter shot. Now, Sean Strickland does have one hell of a chin, and we haven't seen him really, have to wear on it too much because he really isn't. He's more so the aggressor going forward. But Uriah Hall, man, he has, like you said, he is always one punch away from winning the fight. And if Sean Strickland just continues to walk forward with that, continuously going back or forward and forward and forward and forward, man, Uriah Hall is very easily can set up one of those strikes where he just leans back, counter strike, counter right hook right across the chin. This is going to be a lot of fun, Derick. Go ahead.
So let me now talk about a variant in the timeline, right? I've been watching that Loki show, right, where they got multiple timelines and whatnot, right? So this is a variant in the timeline. One of them is that Uriah Hall just perfectly sets up counter-strike, gets Sean Strickland out of there. Here's the other one. Sean Strickland is a fast starter. Uriah Hall is notoriously a very, very slow starter. He doesn't get into his groove until about round 3 or round 4, right? And sometimes in a 3-round fight, you don't got enough time, but luckily this is 5 rounds, right? Uriah Hall is a slow starter, and Sean Strickland has 9 first-round finishes under his belt. So that's what I'm really concerned about. The other thing is that when Uriah Hall gets blitzed, because he likes to walk backwards, right? Lateral movement. He's kind of like Niklas Stolze in that sense, where he's at his best when he's moving. When he stops moving, it's very, very bad for him, right? But for Sean Strickland, if he uses the blitzes that he normally does, right? Generally, it's a slow and steady pace, but sometimes he can just blitz in. Uriah Hall has this tendency of doing the thing that you said you hate. This. You put your hands out and you just try to and it's an instinct. Honestly, it's an instinct. You cannot fault the man because it's just one of those things that we do. When someone gets close, you just get away, push them out. But what does this do? If your hands are out here, guess what's exposed? Your chin, right? Hook over right over the top of those outstretched hands, and it could be game over for Uriah Hall. So in one universe, I can see Sean Strickland finishing this fight very, very early, just getting him out of there, trying to just put a pace on him. But like I said, in other universes, I give Uriah Hall an advantage. Now let's talk about the small cage before we give our last pick right here. Uriah Hall needs space and time to set up his strikes. Sean Strickland is not going to allow that. Obviously, Uriah Hall knows that, but how do you think it's going to impact this? Do you think that Sean Strickland's best bet is to say, I'm going to take away your kicks, I'm going to make you box me?
Yeah, 100%. If Sean Strickland wants this win, he's got to be pressure forward, stay in boxing range, and piece him up. And what I really like about Sean Strickland, he has this amazing 2 down the pipe, 4 over the top. Throws a right down the pipe and a hook right over the top. And he was catching Jotko with that pretty constantly, where he's able actually to go over, which leads to what you're talking about before, or Uriah Hall will extend his hands, leads it to go right over the top and connect. So if Sean Strickland wants this win, he's got to do it early. He's got to get it done in boxing range, and he's got to be a fast output, which all of those things are very, very within Sean Strickland's reach. Now, can that happen against a guy that is durable as Uriah Hall without getting counter-struck on? We'll see. Time will only tell, because I do like the fact that Uriah Hall, it's a pro and a con for him that he's able to start a little bit later because he's able to get those reads in the beginning. Now, can you get those reads while a dude is lighting you up in the face? I don't know. We'll see going forward. But that's right there what makes this one so interesting to me, because it's really, these fighters are set up to be the greatest match for each of these fighters going forward. Derick, what do you think?
You know what, man? It's going to be interesting. That's what I think. It's really, really going to be interesting, and I don't know how this thing is gonna pan out. That's really my feeling on this one, man. I agree with you. This is tailor-made for each other. It's going to be the ebb and flow. I think that there's going to be a lot of back and forth. I do not envision this as a one-sided fight, but I think at this point, AJ, let's just give our picks, you know what I'm saying, and let's really, you know what I'm saying, finalize this thing. Now, I want to lastly point out before you give your pick first, AJ, that Uriah Hall in his last 3 victories has won via finish. All of his last 3 victories. TKO round 1 versus Weidman doesn't really count. It's like doctor stoppage. Shout out Conor McGregor. Doctor stoppage, not a TKO. Doctor stoppage, right? Antonio Carlos Jr., who is now Actually, he has not all of his 3. So 3 out of his last 4 victories have been finishes. Antonio Carlos Jr., that was a split decision. Carlos Jr. now fights in PFL. Anderson Silva, TKO round 4. And Bevon Lewis, KO round 3. So take that into consideration before giving your pick. But throw it out there, man. Who you got and why?
Yeah, this is one of those ones where I really like Sean Strickland. I really like Sean Strickland as a fighter. And I wasn't able to see enough in Uriah Hall's last fight to kind of give him any, credit or discredit going forward. So I'm just really going off of what I know for Uriah Hall in the past. This one's a hard one for me to choose, and I actually don't have how I expect this one to go down. But I'm giving the victory to Uriah Hall, and I'm gonna have to go by decision. I don't think he's gonna be able to get Sean Strickland out, but I do think he's gonna be able to outpoint, maybe not outpoint Sean Strickland, but outgrit Sean Strickland. I definitely think Uriah Hall is gonna come forward later in the rounds, and we're gonna see how those all play out when the water starts to get a little deep and Sean Strickland starts to get a little more lactic acid in his muscles. But if this one ends early, man, look out for Sean Strickland with an early KO. Now, that being said, I'm going Uriah Hall by decision. I know it's against what you were saying with his last 3 out of 4, always getting finishes, but I don't necessarily see him finishing Sean Strickland going forward. Who do you got, Derick, and why?
So, AJ, one thing that I failed to mention that we should definitely take into account for this matchup is that Sean Strickland has finished out his training camp over there at Extreme Couture with Eric Nixick, right? So he may be looking to wrestle this fight, man. You never know. You never know. That's not his natural tendency, right, as of late, but he may be able to do it. And if he does it, that changes the entire landscape of what we're talking about, right? But nonetheless, I'm going to, and this is, listen, we both said it, we're really big fans of this dude, Sean Strickland. Tarzan is a beast, man. Like I said, one of my favorites to do it currently. I'm going to give the nod to Uriah Hall. His nickname is Prime Time for a reason, and I think the longer the fight goes on, the more it favors Uriah Hall because his power is there rounds 1 through 5. He does not get tired crazy like that, and even if he does get tired, like I said, one shot away. So it's one of those things where Sean Strickland, we're talking volume, right? He's not really knocking these dudes out. He's beating them up a bunch, right? Like these dudes are getting starched up. He's got 10 knockouts in his 23 career victories. But Uriah Hall, 13 knockouts in his 17 victories. Like I said, the man is a finisher. And for that reason, I'm going to go TKO round 5. I think that Uriah Hall is going to, listen, you go in that straight walking forward pattern for 5 straight rounds, man. That's enough time to figure it out and to throw something crazy that you're not expecting. I don't know if Sean Strickland can keep up the pace for all 5 rounds because the last time he fought in a 5-round fight was in 2013 when he fought, it was a middleweight championship contest in King of the Cage, man. So it's been, 8 years since you fought a 5-round fight? It'll be interesting to see. I'm giving the nod to Uriah Hall. I think it's going to be a really fun back and forth matchup, and we already talked about it before. This is just very underhyped. Very, very just interesting matchup overall, man. So that's the picks. Once again, folks, this is not a bantamweight bout. This is a middleweight contest. Apologies for the error on that one. We'll get it right next time. But I'm rolling with the underdog. It looks like both of us are rolling with the underdog, man. So, folks, if you like the assessment, if you like the synopsis that we just put down for this main card, drop a like, subscribe, help us boost up that algorithm, and check out our website, bloodywaterpodcast.com. That's the hub. You can listen to our podcast for free there, listen to all the short clips. All the links that you need are all there. Don't forget, buy us a coffee, support the show. You know, it's in the link in my bio on Instagram or somewhere here in our description, man. Throw a little bit of love out, and if you can't afford to throw any money, even though you be buying Starbucks every day, you know you do, but if you can't afford to, drop a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, right? AJ, one last piece of business we got to get into, my man.
And now, the all factors considered fight of the night picks are in.
And there's a lot of options this week, man. There are a lot of options. I have 2 ready to go because I think last time you might have taken mine, so I'm ready. I got options here, man, but you kick it off. Who is your fight of the night for UFC Fight Night 194?
Oh man, you were right, Derick. There are a lot of options on this one, but I'm going back, man. I'm going with the foreshadow. I'm going Danny Chavez versus Kai Kamaka. This one's going to be an absolute banger. I don't know if it's going to go to the distance, which hopefully it will, so we can see some crazy stuff going forward. But this one's going to be insane, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. Danny Chavez, Kai Kamaka. Look out for it. Who you got, Derick, and why?
I'm going to stick with the main card, my man. And like I said earlier, I think that if everything goes accordingly, Taekwondo versus Muay Thai is going to be a fun matchup, man. I think Cheyanne Buys versus Gloria de Paula could be a fight of the night if they keep it standing. But like I said, I keep it locked. I got a second one in case they want to take it to the ground and have a hug fest over there for this MMA. And I'm going to go Chris Grutzmacher versus Rafa Garcia. That's got banger written all over it, man. If you don't know none of these guys, man, you're about to find out. So tune in. It is a prelim. So both of us, we gave out fight of the nights on the prelim. So you got to watch it. You know what I'm saying? And the last thing that I do want to point out is my sleeper, right? Ronnie Lawrence versus Trevin Jones. That's it. I'm just enough said. I'll just drop that name right there. The last piece of business, AJ, folks probably already tuned out by this point in regards to the main card, but Uriah Hall fighting out of Fortis MMA. Saif Saud versus Eric Nixick. Interesting. I don't know. It'll be a good one. All right, folks, that's just about everything that we got. Next week, we got UFC 265, and I'm breaking some news. If I didn't do it earlier, I probably didn't. Amanda Nunes versus Julia Pena. That bout is off and rescheduled to a later date because Amanda Nunes tested positive for COVID-19. So, bummer, but we still got a title fight. We still got Derek Lewis versus Cyril Gane for the interim heavyweight championship. A lot of disrespect headed towards Francis Ngannou over there, but we'll talk about that next week. Tune in, folks. Drop a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And let me see. Here we go. Hold on. Where are we at? Oh, there we go. We're back. Apologies about that. All right. End show. AJ, do you got any last words for the people? We kind of, a little screwy on the end of this one.
A little screwy on the end of this one, but nah, brother. Other than that, just leave a comment. Let us know. We've been getting better at responding, reading them. Let us know what you think, man. Hit us up on Instagram. Drop some love for your boys. Shout out. All right. We see you watching. We see you doing all that. We appreciate the love. We also appreciate the hate. So just let us know how we doing, and let us know what we can do to get better at, man. Going forward, we're trying to get this. It already is the best MMA show, but we always got room to grow. So let us know. All right.
All right, yeah, let us know. And lastly, AJ, I got something special. This is super cheap. We're grassroots. We're low budget over here, but let me pull it out. I'm gonna do some modifications. I'm gonna try to with my handyman skills, but don't forget, we gotta show up with the picks because the winner of it might have one of these bad boys. You know what I'm saying? We might have to rock with these, throw it on the mantle. So listen, man, you better hope you come correct with the picks. I'm hoping so too. I don't got it up because I ain't no champion right now, man. But like I said, at the end of the year, we are going to find out, folks. So there are big stakes at hand, folks, and that's it. Like I said, bloodywaterpodcast.com. That's it for us, folks. Until next time, peace.